is On Point with Victor. I am the mentioned Victor Armendariz. Welcome and welcome and welcome. Thanks again for listening, as always. Boy, what an amazing week we've had, and lots of news everywhere. We've got so much to talk about today. So glad you could join us. And listen, if you're tuned in and you want to see what Victor looks like, which I don't recommend all the time, but if you do, then go to Facebook Live. If you go to America's Web Radio, you can click on the video and you can check us out live right here in the studio. I wore a very special shirt for people today. I don't know. Let's see if the camera will pick it up. Maybe it will. I'll emphasize that later. But if you do want to tune in and you want to see this show happen live and on the air and on TV, so to speak, go to America's Web Radio. So if you go to Facebook, go to America's Web Radio, click on videos or live, whatever it tells you there in Facebook, and you can watch me do this show live. If you would rather go to YouTube, then go to YouTube and search America's Web Radio, and it's live right there all the time. We have a YouTube channel, so you can go there and you can watch the live shows, and you can look up probably old shows. But it is live, and you can see the shows going on. You can see it going on right now, and you can see the shows coming on after me. So definitely bookmark the YouTube America's Web Radio page. So let's see. I got a few more things to get out of the way here. A little office work, so to speak, to get out of the way here. So we mentioned Facebook Live. We mentioned YouTube channel, America's Web Radio. If you want to find me and you want to follow me, you want to ask me questions, the best way to do it is through Facebook. You can go live there and ask me questions as this show progresses. And the other ways to do it would be Instagram. You can find Radio Victor on Instagram. You can find Radio Victor Twitter. You can find me on Facebook as Victor Armendariz, Armendariz. Z is in zebra. You can find me there. But again, I love it for you guys to follow America's Web Radio, the Facebook page, and America's Web Radio, the YouTube channel.
And remind them, Victor, that if they go to YouTube and look up America's Web Radio, go to our channel, and we would certainly appreciate it if they would like and also subscribe to the channel. That would help us out, and then it'd just make it that much easier for them to keep track of old shows and new shows and those shows and
and all future shows. Absolutely. Look, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not, I don't sugarcoat things. It costs money to do what we do here at America's Web Radio. And the more of you that will subscribe and like the YouTube channel, America's Web Radio, it really, really does help us out. And you guys have been great so far. I mean, we get new listeners every week, and I hear from you guys every week. It's wonderful. So just do that little extra step of subscribing and liking our YouTube channel. That would be most wonderful. All right. So I'm going to move on now a little bit. We like I said, there's so much going on. I don't even know where to begin. But one thing I do want to start out with is the massive fire that went on in Notre Dame. It's whether you're a Catholic or an artsy-fartsy type of person, or maybe you're not an everyday appreciative of artworks or old buildings or historic buildings, you can't help but appreciate the beauty of Notre Dame. It's an amazing place.
Been there, done that.
As our producer says, if you haven't been there and done that, you probably should. Notre Dame, it has...
Well, not today.
But not today. Not today. Not right now. I mean, you got a show to listen to. Notre Dame, I mean, that building has been there for 850 years. 850 years. So think about that. I mean, it's nothing less than amazing. And unfortunately, this fire, it devastated a large part of the building. But they will rebuild. They will remodel. There's no doubt in my mind. Even the weenie over there, the president over there in France, Macron, he has stated clearly that they will rebuild, that they will remodel. So that's a good thing. This is an instance when we can put politics aside and come together on something like this. Again, it is such a historic building. And the good news is the fire's out. I mean, they got the fire out. They got a lot of artifacts out. They were able to save a lot of what was in the building and got a lot out of the fire's way. But the fire is out. The bad news is the cathedral's iconic spire fell. It fell during the hours that it took to battle the blaze. So there's damage. We can't say there's not. You can look at the pictures and see there's damage. But again, it's probably the most amazing cathedral in the world. And it was built in the 13th century. It's a medieval structure that's considered the feat of art. I mean, it's the feat of architecture. As much as it's considered a religious symbol, it is a piece of architectural history. So I can't stress that enough. If you've never seen it or you don't know much about it, go look it up. Notre Dame in Paris gets twice as many visitors as the Eiffel Tower. So imagine that. Twice as many people that go to France, go to Paris, will go visit the Notre Dame Cathedral before they go visit the Eiffel Tower. I mean, so that tells you something right there of what kind of building, what kind of historic symbol that Notre Dame is.
You know, I've got to interrupt.
Oh yeah, go right ahead.
You know, the thing that gets me is like the pyramids, Notre Dame. It's like they had the first computers, and I think they were called brains, you know. But I mean, can you imagine? It would take a computer a while to figure it all out, even today. But just think what they went through 850 years ago.
850 years ago,
you know,
using
they didn't even have a slide rule.
Exactly. Yeah. No, they had a pulley system and just using physics.
Yeah, and I think about that. I think about it all the time in the car industry because of the CAD systems today and all of this kind of stuff. But 850 years ago, they didn't even have legal pads.
Exactly.
You know,
imagine. Really, you know, it's a great point.
Squat down here on the sand with me, and if we do this,
it's like taking as when we were kids and we were playing army or war, and we'd get down in the sand with a stick.
Yeah.
This is what we're gonna do. This is the plan. You're right. That's exact. I mean, 850 years ago, I think people need to stop for a moment and think about exactly what you're saying there. Today we have AutoCAD. We have all these systems and 3D this and 4D that, and that you can plug in numbers and the computer will spit out a perfect image.
And you take it one step further and you wonder how many people really, you have the I don't even know who designed the Notre Dame, but I did at one time. But you take that and you have a genius doing it. But it's like me talking to you. I'm the genius, and then how do I relate it to you, knowing that you're not the genius? No, I'm just teasing. But, you know,
I'm the peasant worker.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, well, half.
But no, you're right. Yeah.
How do you? How would they say if a guy is not educated to some degree?
It is exactly what you're saying. Is it's one thing to come up back then with the plan. It's another thing to execute it.
Yeah.
When you've got a populace that's not educated.
Exactly.
And that's what they had back then, 850 years ago.
And they said, I believe I heard today on the news, that structurally, obviously the roof had caved in and the wood had burned, but structurally the exterior is still intact.
It's still intact. It's nothing short of amazing. And there are even parts, there's a cross, there's a stained glass window that apparently is unscathed.
Yeah.
I mean, now that gets into a whole nother discussion of divine intervention that I won't get into because this isn't a religious show, but you can't help but look at those pictures and there's something going on there. Nothing short of amazing. But, you know, we talk about it being 850 years ago. Well, that's when it was completed. Look at the time before 850 years ago that led up to building it, not to mention how long it took to build that for exactly the reasons that you were mentioning. They didn't have the tools of today.
No. I mean, just cutting the rock.
Exactly.
You know, one slip of the hammer and the chisel, and you start all over again.
Or one wrong slip, you lose a worker.
Yeah.
I mean, and then building it, and they didn't have the structural ladders and all of the things that we
Cranes?
have today, the cranes, the safety measures. It really, really, when you get down to it, which is why you don't have to appreciate, or you don't have to be a Catholic, or you don't have to appreciate the Catholic religion, or any of those aspects, but you can't help but appreciate the historic value of the architect, the architectural, or the design that went through, or the art that it is, and the art that it houses. So it really is amazing. I mean, just to put it in perspective, it gets 13 million visitors a year. 13 million people a year go and look at this cathedral, and then within minutes, it was on the cusp of burning down. And that's, you can't, now I know we can refurbish, and they're going to rebuild, but that's going to be today's rebuilding. You're never going to get back the 850 years ago of what was lost in that fire. So, I mean, on the plus side and the positive side, the fact that it didn't burn to the ground, the fact that parts of it were saved is miraculous. And the men and women who went into that place and put out that fire, they demand all the accolades in the world.
You know, this is, and I don't mean this lightly. I mean it very seriously, as a matter of fact. But, you know, in touring it and in touring other things, we went to several other cathedrals in Canterbury, and other places. But, and this is going to sound, maybe it's just because I'm a lightweight to begin with, but, you know, they can rebuild it.
Mm-hmm.
They can make it look like yesterday, maybe. But for me, and this is going to sound really on left field, but they'll never replace the smell.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's something about going in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not mildew or mold,
Mm-hmm.
or it's just no,
it's the aging.
Oh.
It's the aging wood. It's the
Aging
aging
wood, yeah.
stone. It's the aging clay.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about, because when I go, there are parts of Mexico that I'll go to every year, and in southern Mexico, there are some awesome old churches that have been there for years and years and years, and there is a smell, just even from the pews where you sit and or kneel. They have a distinct smell. There is no question to what you're saying there.
If there had been a big fat lady there right before you put your nose down into the pew,
well, that's a whole nother problem.
Yeah, no. But I'm serious. I'm not making light of it, because there's just a distinct.
Yeah, there really is. I've been to castles in Germany. I've been to castles in Spain, and that you get that same experience.
Mm-hmm.
There is when you walk down into the tunnels and the walkways and hallways of some of the castles in Europe, there is a distinct smell. There is no doubt in my mind. Even the air, as it comes across as a little cooler as you go down into some of what were the dungeons or what were the hallways that led to dungeons. There's an air about it, and there's a smell about it. There's no doubt. So you're 100% right. So it's not out as far as left field as you thought it was. I mean, we're not talking Biden here, smelling hair and body parts. Okay, I digress. I was going to keep this non-political, and I'm going to stick to that because it is a wonderful art piece, and we should all want the best to happen for that cathedral, the refurbishing to happen, the rebuilding to happen. Again, it's not a political issue. In fact, one of the best things that I've seen so far come out of this is the funding has already reached $679 million,
really?
all from private business.
Huh.
All from private business. That's zero government money there. Already $679 million. So that shows you what this cathedral meant to people. When you've got businesses in France that are stepping up to that level and already donating money, and that's just.
Is there any estimate on?
Oh, the cost?
Yeah.
I know it surpasses that, but I don't know. The last I saw, they were still working through estimates, just working through the building. So I haven't even heard an estimate, but they said it'll be well beyond that part. But that's just in a day. $679 million a day. And that's just French money. You know, there's money, the U.S., money will come from the U.S., money will come from companies from all over the world.
So where do I put the match when we leave today?
Exactly. We need to rebuild America's Web Radio. You didn't hear that. We didn't say that. So,
I didn't say it. You might have said it.
right. I might have said it. I'm the host. I can say lots of things. So anyway, folks, that's what I really I wanted to start the show out with just talking about a little bit about Notre Dame, just because it's absolutely amazing and what's happening there, and we've got to rebuild it and be part of it. So, okay, we are at our first break. You guys hold on right there. We will be right back, and I'm going to get into a discussion about Bernie the socialist. So you hang on right there. You're listening to America's Web Radio, On Point with Victor. We will be right back after this break.
Get your pen and paper ready. If there's a move in your near future, I'm here to tell you that the folks I used and now recommend is Around Town Movers. Timothy and the guys recently moved me, and I am and was totally satisfied with a sometimes not so fun experience moving. Call Timothy at 770-378-4708 and make it a good move and a good experience. Around Town Movers for that local or cross-country move. Timothy, Around Town Movers, in my opinion, are the best. That's Around Town Movers. Call them.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction, or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
Or taking the family on a vacation in a 71 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, you need to tune in to Classic Cars with Steve Ronaldo and Jim Weber every Saturday from 8 to 9 a.m. on americaswebradio.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the americasbroadcastnetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And we're back. Welcome to On Point with Victor. This is America's Web Radio, the next evolution in the step of talk radio. This is where it's at. America's Web Radio, On Point with Victor. So we're going to move on a little bit. I can't go any further without going off a little bit. Not going off. We're going to have a discussion because we do things here with common sense and logic. But I have to talk about Bernie Sanders and his the show he put on last night on Fox News. Fox did hosted a town hall. And okay, first of all, I've got to give Bernie the socialist credit for going on Fox and participating in the town hall put on by Fox News, because none of his cohorts will. In fact, the Democrat Party is so afraid of real questions. They're so afraid of facts being brought to a discussion that the Democrat Party has said in no way, shape, or form will Fox News host a Democrat debate. We've got 20 plus people running for the nomination to be the nomination for the nominated Democrat president candidate. Boy, I'm getting that all backwards today. This is how excited I am about wanting to talk to you and just really bring to you common sense to what Bernie Sanders was saying. But anyway, we've got 20, 30, and who knows how many it's going to be by the time we get to 2020. But we've got all these people who are all vying for a chance to represent the Democrat Party on the presidential ticket. And they want to go against Donald Trump in 2020. And with all of these people, none of them would stand up and say, hey, you know what, Democrat Party, you know what, DNC, if I go over to Fox News, I'm going to reach 2, 3, 4 times the number of people that I'm going to see on CNN, MSNBC, or any of those other channels put together. So kudos to Bernie the socialist for going to Fox, because the number of people he was in front of last night trounces the number of people that he would get on with CNN. Producer.
Who was, I watched a little bit of it. My stomach can only take so much. But who were the people that were supporting him there? Every now and then he'd say, use toilet paper, and somebody would yell, yeah, So
yeah. Well, to the credit of Fox, of which no one in the lamestream media will give them credit, they actually filled the audience with a lot of Democrats. They put a lot of independents. Well, let's just say self-described Democrats, self-described socialists, and self-described independents, and even self-described socialist Democrats. All of them, they put them in the audience, and then they put a few Republicans. So that audience was very well diverse. But if you look at the way they broke it down, there was a lot of support in there for Sanders, because if you're a Democrat and you're married to the letter D, you support Sanders. If you're a socialist Democrat, you support Sanders. If you're an outright socialist, you support Sanders. If you're an independent, now, if you're a true independent, those I think will break to Trump. I think those guys are going to break. So in there last night, you had one part Republican, one part independent, which could, let's tip it to Republican side. But then you had one part socialist Democrat, and one part Democrat. So it was definitely weighted.
With Sanders and your girlfriend AOC, does this mean that I have to take my indoor plumbing and put it in the backyard?
Well, you're going to have to do a lot worse than that if AOC ever got her way and if Bernie got his way. And it reminds me, those are things that you will have to do, not Bernie Sanders, the socialist, and not AOC, the young socialist. They will never have to be part of the misery they force on you. I mean, that's just something that I can't stress enough, and I'll get into that a little more. But again, I will give Bernie the socialist credit because he went on Fox News. I give him credit for doing that. Sanders, now he was deflective and he was argumentative, and he kind of trashed Fox right to their face, and he wouldn't answer a question. But he still went on knowing that he was going to get in front of thousands and thousands and thousands of more viewers, more potential voters than he would on CNN and MSNBC. Now look, Bernie Sanders is going to go to all those shows. That's his bread and butter, just as it is for all the Democrats. But at least he went to Fox to get in front of a whole slew of other viewers. So I give him credit for that. But when you go back to the DNC and the National Democrat Party, they have stated that in no way, shape, or form will they allow Fox News to host a debate. Now, that's shutting out the media. That's censorship. And for every Democrat out there listening to me right now who thinks you're open-minded, and who you think that you're very open-minded, and you think that the other side is closed-minded, you better stop and pay attention to what your party is doing, because your party is telling you you're not smart enough, or we can't trust you. If you're watching another station, well, you're not smart enough to watch anything but CNN or the viewers of Fox News, which, ladies and gentlemen, 40% of the viewers of Fox News classify themselves as non-Republican. 40%. So what the Democrat Party is telling you is you're just not smart enough. You're a dumb fool if you're watching Fox News. So that's the kind of party that you are blindly supporting if you are married to the letter D. And again, at least Sanders went there last night. But again, all he did was deflect. He was argumentative. He wouldn't answer a question. He blamed Trump for everything. So that, I guess, shouldn't be surprising to me. But I was hoping Sanders would use this opportunity as an actual chance to get into specifics. Tell us how you're going to pay for your socialism. He doesn't want to do that. But I thought at least he would be driven to do it last night. But he wasn't. because the moderators, again, it was a town hall setting, so they were trying to let people in the audience ask questions, and all the questions that I saw seemed to come from left-leaning or already socialist wanting people. Martha McCallum and Brett Baier, probably two people best in the business. They really are. If you watch the 6 o'clock hour news hour with Brett Baier, I challenge you to find a bias in his news report. It's not there, folks. You can't tell me which way Brett Baier votes because you don't know, because his news hour is truly that, a news hour. So Brett Baier and Martha McCallum, probably two of the best in the business to moderate. The problem with the town hall setting is the moderators don't challenge enough. They try to let the audience participate, and they also were allowing Bernie Sanders to really sit there and just go on and on and on, which I understand also that this is very early. We haven't even had a debate yet. These town halls is an early way for people to start looking at the different candidates and look, kudos to Fox News for offering, kudos to Sanders for taking them up on it. I wish they had pushed a little more, but I think I understand where Fox News, where Martha McCallum and Brett Baier were coming from, because if they push too hard on this one, no other candidate is going to go on there, but probably no other candidate from the Democrat Party is going to go on Fox anyway. They are scared of facts. They are scared of hard questions. But so in that setting last night, Sanders had some tough questions, but he didn't really ask them. And you can go to YouTube. You can look. You can see what I'm saying. Whenever Martha challenged him, he just went back to Trump, 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 evil, evil Trump, bad Trump, bad Trump. He never wants to get into specifics. He never wants to talk about the cost of socialism. He never, well, none of the Democrats want to talk about the cost of anything because money grows on trees. According to Occasional Cortex, she thinks that money and food grows in the cities and they just show up at the supermarket, or the supermarket somehow has this huge growth system in the back of their supermarkets and food just shows up there. And this girl has an economics degree or an economics minor. I don't know, but that's a whole nother discussion that we could get into later. So let me get back to Sanders. Let's take the next break. I'm going to go ahead and take the break so I can get into this next part, the next segment, and we can really get into this a little bit. So stay right there. Hang on. You're listening to On Point with Victor. This is America's Web Radio. We'll be right back.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
45 years of experience is behind the most trusted name in auto transportation, Passport Transport, the first and finest today. That's why Passport Transport is the preferred auto transport for major auto manufacturers, concours, museums, tours, and collectors, and should be your choice from across the state to across the country. When you have the need, go to PassportTransport.com and enjoy the peace of mind referenced experience will give you. Passport Transport.
Live closer to your food source. Learn how to grow it yourself. Please join me every Saturday morning at 10 Eastern on America's Homegrown Veggie Show for tips and advice from the country's best gardeners.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening. You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening. You're listening to America's Web.
And welcome back. I'm laughing because every now and then things just don't go the way they're planned. And in radio, it's no different. Computers don't want to cooperate sometimes. The board doesn't want to cooperate sometimes. Electricity doesn't want to cooperate sometimes. So, maybe we need some windmills in here. But anyway, I digress. All right, let's get back to this. Folks, you're listening to On Point with Victor. I am Victor Armendariz. Find us on Facebook. Find us on YouTube, America's Web Radio. You can watch live. You can see my awesome. There's the music I was listening for. Check out my awesome shirt that I have on today. But anyway, check us out, Facebook, on YouTube. And look, if you miss a show or you want to hear the show again because you missed my voice during the week, you go to America's Web Radio. You should see the looks I just got. You go to americaswebradio.com. Go to our website, and you can find old shows. Not just mine. You can find the Classic Car Show. You can find the Elderly Show. You can find the doctor shows. There's numerous shows and just wonderful information that you can find at America's Web Radio and listen anytime you want. And I know every one of you walk around with your earbuds on and your phones on. So stream America's Web Radio. You're going to love it. Trust me. And not just my show. So, all right, let's get back to this. And one thing I do want to mention also, if you're out there and you're listening and you want to get a free hour on America's Web Radio, you contact us this week, or contact us today, gm@americaswebradio.com. That's gm@americasradio.com. Email us today. Tell us why you think you deserve a free hour on America's Web Radio, and we're going to choose a few. And that's going to be, you can come on and talk politics with me. You can come on and challenge me, or you can come on and talk about your business. So email us today, gm@americaswebradio.com. Okay, let's get back to this. So I was giving Sanders kudos. So anybody out there who doesn't believe that I will give Bernie the Socialist kudos, I gave him kudos for going on Fox and doing the town hall. My only problem is he wasn't challenged enough, and he was allowed to spew his socialist unicorn farts and fairy dust utopian dream. Because that's what it is, folks. Socialism isn't going to get us anything but misery. And I know it sounds good, and emotionally it looks good, sounds good, and if they could put it in a piece of gum, it would taste good. But it's not. History shows that it's not. Just look at Venezuela. If you want to live in a world like Venezuela, and look, Venezuela is not as big as we are. So yeah, it'll take us longer to get there, but that's where socialism will take us. So I just can't stress it enough. Well, let me get back into some of this about Bernie the socialist, and because that's what he is. He even admits it, kinda. When it's all popular and he's in front of the right crowd, he'll admit being the socialist that he is. When he's in Vermont running for office, he's an independent. When he's in front of what he thinks might be a Republican-leaning group, he's suddenly for guns and the Second Amendment. So again, you've always got to watch what these people do, not just what they say. And look at the environment that they're in, because a politician is a politician. They're going to tell you what you want to hear, what they think you want to hear. That's what they're going to tell you. And that goes for the whole swamp in Washington, Republicans also. With the exception being probably the Freedom Caucus. The Freedom Caucus is about the only bunch of guys up there that Republicans up there that really, really have it straight, and they shoot straight. We have too many establishment Republicans that fall in line and don't push back enough against the Democrats, or they just agree with some of this socialist stuff. I always tell you, socialism is for the people, not for the socialist. So the political elite aren't going to have to do any of this business that they want to push on the people. And if you don't believe me, look at today. Look at the stuff coming out of Washington today, whether it be Obamacare or the so-called Affordable Care Act, which should be renamed the Unaffordable Care Act. None of the politicians have to participate in that. None of the politicians in Washington are subject to Obamacare or the so-called Affordable Care Act. Look at the Department of Education. None of the politicians are subject to government education. They all send their kids to the best private schools they can get them into. And if they can't earn their way in, they'll pay their way in. And if you don't believe me, just look at the news of late. with the scam that's been going on with people paying the elitist in Hollywood and the elitist in government paying to have their children accepted into Harvard and Yale and all these other very pretentious schools. But all right, I'm getting a little bit off topic, but it all still comes back to socialism. It all comes back to the mind of a politician, the mind of the socialist Democrat and today's Democrat Party, and some of the establishment Republicans. I hate to say it, and people get mad at me when I say it. I get calls from the Republican groups sometimes that say, "Hey, Victor, tone down your talk of establishment Republicans." Well, you look, I can't do that. I'm always straight with you guys on this show, and my show On Point with Victor is about being honest with you. And if I get something wrong, I'm going to come back next week and I'm going to admit that I got it wrong. But I'm not going to sugarcoat things. And I'm not going to be nice to the establishment Republicans. I'm not going to be nice to the swamp in Washington that just puts out misery on the people and forces people into actions and forces behaviors from the populace that they don't have to engage in. So I'm never going to let that go. I don't care what Republican group calls me. I don't care what group banishes me from their meetings, which has happened. I won't name names, but believe it or not, your nice host, your host, me, I'm nice to everybody, and I can get along with everybody. But sometimes I'm the outcast because these political groups do not like people to push back, and they especially don't like to be pushed back from let's just say an American of Mexican descent who calls them and wants them to put their words where their mouth is, if that makes sense, or put their money where their mouth is. Boy, I'm struggling today a little bit, folks, but I hope I'm making you laugh. But it's true. As nice of a guy as I am, and those of you out there are probably smiling that know me because you know I'm nice. But there are groups out there, and some of them Republican, that they don't want me around. And they won't ask me to speak anymore to some of the groups. They've kind of banned me because they know what I'm going to talk about. In fact, let me deviate a little bit. Yesterday, I gave a speech at the Get Right rally. So we had a Get Right rally at downtown yesterday on Liberty Plaza. This was in Atlanta, Georgia, for those of you not in Atlanta. Down by the state capitol in Georgia, across from the state capitol, is an awesome, beautiful plaza, taxpayer-funded plaza called Liberty Plaza. And there was a group that got together yesterday and did a rally, put on a rally called the Get Right Rally. It was a pro-Trump rally, it was a pro-family rally, and it was pro-freedom of religion rally. And I had a blast yesterday. So let me take a moment, please indulge me, and let me thank Lucretia Hughes and everyone that was involved with the Get Right rally yesterday. It was amazing. I had a blast, and I am so honored to have been a part of it, to have been asked to be a featured speaker. And also, I want to acknowledge all the other speakers that were there yesterday. There were some awesome, great people. And let me tell you, yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, this was a Get Right rally. This was a Trump rally, a freedom of religion rally. It was a pro-family rally. And I will tell you right now, as I sit here, there were more Black Americans and a couple of Hispanic Americans there, even more than there were Caucasians or white privilege. There was more Black privilege and white privilege. I mean, brown privilege, I'm sorry, than there was white privilege. It was an amazing crowd. It was an amazing crowd. When I got up and gave my speech, and I looked out at that crowd, there were Black people, there were brown people, there were Asian or yellow people, there were white people, there were cowboys, there, you name it, women, children, men. It was that diverse of a crowd. All of them there with a positive attitude, all of them there to cheer on the country. The chants USA, USA, USA. I love it every time I hear it. And to see a diverse crowd like that chant USA, USA, they're chanting a love of this country, because they weren't standing there going, why is this happening to me? Or they weren't trying to blame their plight on anyone else. They were happy to be in this country. They were happy to be citizens of this country. They were happy to be part of the greatest country in the world, the country where there is freedom, where there is liberty, and you can achieve whatever you want, where your sweat equity should be rewarded by a capitalist economy. That's what was being celebrated yesterday. And so I had a blast yesterday, gave my speech, and I want to thank the gentleman that was there who came up and stood while I spoke. He came up and stood right on stage with me with the American flag flying and an AR-15 strapped over his shoulder. And I told the crowd, sometimes when I go out to give speeches, I'm not sure if people are going to like me or not. So I pick out the guy with the biggest gun and ask him to stand next to me and get my back. And that guy did. So shout out to him. So, all right, that was yesterday, but it was fun, folks. That's going to be on the internet, by the way. It'll be all over Facebook. It'll be all over YouTube. So if you want to check out the Get Right Rally, just go and search it. You'll find it on Facebook and you'll find it on YouTube, and you can watch all the speakers, not just myself.
Who was the sponsor on that?
So the major sponsor was Lucretia Hughes through her organization that she has, a media group, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I believe the NRA may have been involved, or at least a sponsor, and a couple of other sponsors that I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was a few sponsors.
The event coordinator, though, you're saying is?
The coordinator was Lucretia Hughes and one other person who I cannot remember, and forgive me for not being able to remember that. But I'll have that name by next week.
I'm just curious, a rally like that, what would you say the demographics were?
So, I was just speaking about that. So it was overwhelmingly, for yesterday's event, was Black Americans was probably the number one. Then white, then Hispanic. And there were some Asian folks there as well. It was about as diverse as you could get.
What about age?
So the age group, it ranged from veterans of wars past, so easily 60s, 70s year olds. There was a couple of gentlemen there, veterans who had to be well into their 80s. And then we had, I would say, all the way down to teenagers. It was amazing, and a couple of kids. So the ages ranged all across the board. It was great to see. It really was. And it was a positive, everyone had a positive message. Yes, there was passion being shown, but it was all positive message, and good message about going into 2020.
Last question, and we got to take a break, but I'm just curious, out of all of your comments during the whole thing, and I'm sure somebody, your wife or somebody, applauded for you, but what comment do you think got, or do you remember got the most applause or the most positive response?
Probably the best response that I personally received was when I talked about.
And you said you were leaving, or this is it, folks, I'm gone?
No, they actually were sad when I left. No. The biggest response probably was, and let me tell you the story real quick. So I talked about how my father came to this country and how the country welcomed my father. My father came here, couldn't speak English, didn't have much money in his pocket, but yet he came here to experience the United States. And this country welcomed him with open arms. And when I was done, an elder gentleman who was Hispanic came up to me crying, and he said, "Victor, your speech was so amazing, and the story of your father touched my heart." He goes, "Because I too came to this country with $47 in my pocket." And he goes, "Now I'm a success, and I'm a success because of what this country afforded me and how it welcomed." So that was amazing. It moved me greatly. So that was the kind of messages that we saw yesterday and the kind of response that we saw yesterday. So all right, folks, I know you're sitting out there going, would you just get to the Bernie Sanders stuff? Well, I'm going to get to more of that. We're going to go to the break. We'll be right back. You're listening to America's Web Radio, On Point with Victor.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. That's www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Karuchak. Join me and my co-host, Dr. Hal Schertz, every Thursday morning at 8 a.m. and listen to the Doctor's Lounge, where you get a private insight into the conversations that doctors have amongst themselves. Join us Thursday, 8 a.m. every week.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And welcome back. This is On Point with Victor, America's Web Radio. All right, let me dive into this. I'm going to go back to Bernie the Socialist. So he did his little thing last night, his little town hall, and all he did was spout out lie after lie, and then accused Trump of lying. He accused Trump of everything but being a child of God, because he can't stand for his socialism. He can't stand for what he's putting out there and what he wants to push on the American people. Because if he told you the truth, you wouldn't like it. So let me start with this. I want to repeat what I said earlier. Socialism let me put it this way. Socialism is always for the people, never for the socialist. It's never for the actual socialist. So the group of elitists who would be putting forth the socialist law onto the people never have to abide by the socialist law. So just never forget this. I want it entrenched in your brain. Socialism is for the people, never for the socialist. So it would do you well to remember that. So whenever a millennial or someone comes up to you and they start spouting how great socialism is, it just hasn't been tried right yet, or full socialism just hasn't been done yet. Well, you just remind them, socialist is for the people, not for the socialist. And if they doubt you, you just point to Venezuela. Maduro is not starving. His army is not starving. But who is starving? The people. Maduro's cabinet is not starving. Maduro's family is not starving. But who's starving? The people. Go to North Korea, where they're communist, which is, it's not much further step from socialism. Kim Jong-un is not starving. His family is not starving. His military is not starving. Who's starving? The people. And you don't have to just believe me. Look at the pictures, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the bread lines in Venezuela. And speaking of bread lines, Bernie Sanders has actually said, he actually looked in a camera back in his youth and said that bread lines were good. Bread lines were okay, because that meant that eventually you were going to get a piece of bread. You were going to get a piece of porridge. But in the United States under capitalism, he said, there are people that are really poor. Please. We don't have poverty in this country. And you guys have heard me talk about this before. It really chaps my derriere because I've seen real poverty. You want to see real poverty? Try going to a third world country. Try going to India. Go to Mexico. Go to Venezuela. You'll see real poverty. Poverty here is having an Xbox. Poverty here is having a PlayStation. Poverty here is having a big screen TV. Poverty here is having an Obama phone. So don't get me started on that. But anyway, let's get back to Bernie the Socialist. So Bernie yesterday, in all his wisdom, he said that we have a horrible tax system in this country. Now, you know what, folks? I'm going to agree with him there. We do have a horrible tax system here. So for once, I'm going to agree with that part of Bernie the Socialist statement, is we do have a horrible tax system. But we will disagree with the reasons why. So Bernie Sanders was out there yesterday, and the outright lie he was just gave over and over and over, saying people were paying more taxes in 2018. He said people today are paying more taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a flat out lie. 90% of Americans who filed their taxes yesterday paid less in taxes in 2018. 90% of Americans paid less in taxes in 2018 than years before. So to stand there last night in front of all to see, Bernie the Socialist telling people that you are paying more taxes is an outright lie. It is a myth that the media and the Democrats have been perpetuating on the American people since the tax cut, the Trump tax policy went into effect. And the reason they did that is because, ladies and gentlemen, my good folks, my good listeners, the Democrats know tax cuts work. They know that they work. Every time they're tried, they know the economy picks up steam. And you need only look to history. John F. Kennedy lowered taxes. He couldn't be a Democrat today. John F. Kennedy would be run out of the Democrat Party. If you're a Kennedy Democrat, it's time for you to walk away from today's Democrat Party. John F. Kennedy lowered taxes and the economy boomed. Ronald Reagan lowered taxes, the economy boomed. George Bush lowered taxes after 9/11 and the economy recovered and then boomed. And I know what some of you are saying. Well, when Bush left, the economy was crashing. The housing was crashing. Look, I'm not even going to entertain that with some intelligence right now, but we can get into that on another show because that was all perpetrated by politicians and ridiculous, dumb policies that were put forth on the people, put forth on the banking industry that brought down housing, that brought down the banks. And then the whole business of bailing out companies should have never been done. But again, that's another show. But we'll get into that. But when you look at the tax cuts, they worked. And now we came out of 8 years of Obama with the worst recovery in history. The slowest growing economic recovery in history. Trump comes in, reverses policy. Instead of raising taxes, he lowered taxes and he cut regulation. And this economy since then has been going through the roof. The only thing that's slowing this economy down is the leftover Fed folks from the Obama administration that keep trying to tinker with the economy. And that's another show that I'll get into. But you can look that up. You can compare the actions of the Fed under the Obama administration and the actions of the Fed now. And you look at the actions under the Fed during the Reagan administration, during the Bush administration. Just compare them for yourself. And I am here to tell you that there are Obama holdovers. There are holdovers probably even from the Clinton administration, unfortunately, because the swamp is so big. But these holdovers will do everything they can, along with the help of the Democrat Party and the media, the lamestream media, to slow this economy down. But even with their efforts, and even with what Trump's up against, this economy is on fire right now. And it's on fire because taxes were lowered, tax rates were cut, and regulation has been gutted. The onerous regulations put on manufacturing was gutted. And now manufacturing jobs are streaming back to this country. Folks, the evidence is there. You don't have to just listen to me. I am just a conveyor of truth. And you can verify it on your own. And I encourage you to do that. So let's get to some more lies of Bernie Sanders. So once he put out that lie about Americans paying more, and I've already blown that one out. And the other thing to keep in mind that he will never tell you, Bernie the Socialist will never tell you, that 50% of this country doesn't pay federal income tax. Half the country, just about half. Let me be specific so nobody tries to say I was lying. We're at about 48% of the country doesn't pay federal income tax. Bernie Sanders, the socialist, is never going to tell you that. But he will go on and on and on and tell you that corporations don't pay taxes. He'll tell you that they don't pay taxes. That's another lie. Corporations never are going to pay taxes because they pass taxation to the people. The only people in this country that pay taxes are individuals. So a corporation, when they get taxed with a 35% corporate tax rate, that tax is put is funneled all the way down to the consumer, you, the individual. So I guess in a way, when Bernie Sanders, the socialist, is running around last night telling people that corporations aren't paying taxes, they're not paying their fair share, in a way he's kind of right. He's just not telling you the full truth, because corporations pay an abundance of taxes by funneling it through you, the individual. We, the individuals, are paying all the taxes on the retail level when the corporations funnel those taxes down. So again, another lie by Bernie the socialist. So let's talk about Democrats and some establishment Republicans who will jump in on the lie with Bernie Sanders, the socialist, about that. So Bernie Sanders also cited that Amazon didn't pay corporate taxes. All right, here's the truth. Amazon is abiding by the law. Amazon is abiding by current tax law. Amazon is abiding by the rules set forth by Bernie Sanders and the rest of the ilk in the Washington swamp. Amazon hasn't done anything wrong. They're following the law. So if you want to stand up there, Bernie the socialist, and tell me that they're not paying taxes, okay, why aren't they paying taxes? They're abiding by your laws. They're abiding by the House rules. They're abiding by everything the government is imposing on them. They're just smart enough to know how to work the system that you, Bernie the socialist, created and the rest of the Washington swamp created. Look, folks, if I sound angry, I'm not mad. I'm just passionate. I'm really, really, really passionate when it comes to these things because I'm tired of the American people being lied to. So I'm going to have to end it here on this note, but I am going to come back next week and I'm going to continue with this discussion because this discussion is so important. But right now, I'm going to leave you with just those are a couple of lies that Bernie Sanders tells, and the socialists and the Democrats will tell you every day, and some establishment Republicans. So you be sure to tune in next week because I'm going to get into this more and more and more. I mean, the hour just flies by. So we're at the end of the show. Thank you again for listening. Listen, you come back, you stay, because on the other side of this break, we're going to get to another hour here, and we're going to do an hour with Roger Bihar and Locked and Load. So we're going to have the gun show coming up next. So you stay right there. You're listening to America's Web Radio. This has been On Point with Victor. Thank you for listening.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best